Recently, I came to the realization that I could not remember the last time I was happy. There must have been happiness, but I could not remember when or how or for what reason I might have been happy. They've given me Wellbutrin, or bupropion, which has had a remarkable sudden effect on my moods, but also makes me quite loopy. I had to make a speech the other day, and it hit me as I was standing there addressing a few hundred people. I became disoriented and searched for words and couldn't think of them. I had an out-of-body experience crossing the street. Later, I nodded off during class, and yet I am refreshingly unconcerned about all of this. What is troubling are the chest pains. They're not chest pains like heart pains. They're like muscle pains in my chest, but they make me think about having a heart attack, and that does make me very depressed. In fact, it makes me cry. Father died one Friday morning almost 4 years ago. He had a heart attack and died. So they've taken me off Wellbutrin and provided me with Zoloft or sertraline. And that has been working much better for me. I feel calm and passive without any confusing side effects, no more ringing in the ears or pain in my chest. Who will I become? My house is near our mother's house. I'm the one who stayed. I asked my brothers to come home for Thanksgiving. That was easy for the one in Minnesota. The one in England took a bit more convincing. They're staying with her at her home for the whole week. Mother sits upright in her chair. She smiles politely, only she has a black eye and a matrix of scabs on her brow from a recent fall. She missed a step on the stair, on the landing by the large painting of her father. It fell on the floor. Mother warned me about her appearance before I came over a week or so ago. It looks worse than it is, she said. And it certainly looks nasty. Jimmy Carter had a nasty fall last month. He went right back to work. Today, for Thanksgiving, Mother sat at the head of the table next to her boyfriend, her 3 sons, our 3 wives, the 4 grandchildren, 12 of us seated around the cherry wood table. Her sons, we talk a lot. We laugh at our own jokes. We can be obnoxious in that way. But she said how happy it makes her for the 3 of us to be together again, laughing together like we used to as kids. Everyone is talking over each other, but every time Mother begins to speak, it all stops. We direct our attention to her. She never reaches the end of a thought. Sometimes she never really begins one. It's like when you all would, oh shoot. I forgot. I'm sorry. And we'd wait, and she'd have nothing else to offer, and the chatter would pick up again like nothing had happened. Oh, my Minnesota brother asked the boyfriend about his children. He, the boyfriend, had been sitting quietly, but at this prompting, he started sharing, and it was really wonderful. He started by talking about his own children, and then he kept going, telling about his life with her, about their history together. He's becoming one of us. But he made this comment about how Mother was getting well. And people nodded and muttered affirming things. I was perplexed. I'm not certain Mother is ever getting well. I'm glad everyone else thinks so. In a few short days, my brothers will depart, and he and I will be alone again with her. When father died, it became my responsibility to drive mother way across town to see her cardiologist. It was at that time she decided to tell me that she'd been diagnosed some 15 years ago with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, or CLL. It's the kind of leukemia you live with until you don't. She didn't want us to worry. An exam late this summer indicated her white blood count was becoming dangerously high. She was prescribed a chemotherapeutic treatment she was reluctant to take, but she took it. Then her immune system began to attack her red blood cells. A little over 2 months ago, she was hospitalized and nearly died. A decision was made that she receive a series of transfusions which served to suppress her immune system so that her white blood cells would stop destroying her red blood cells. There were risks, of course. I mean, there are always risks. But what were we going to do? Let her die? I've had a good life, she said. It sounded so confidently final. I didn't want to hear it. She accepted the transfusions, and as a result, she did not die. Then all this started. The anxiety and unhappiness I feel as I watch mother slipping away. Is she slipping away? My brother in Minnesota and mother's boyfriend, they say what is happening is temporary, but she's 84. Her world used to be the world. Social, stylish, active, engaged, singing in the choir, managing the food pantry, well-appointed, always the right scarf. What of her now? Sitting up, yes, but wrapped in her own arms, injured. What comes next? Since Thanksgiving, I've been staying nights at Mother's house, which is also the house she grew up in. I sleep in my parents' bed upstairs, Mother and her boyfriend in her childhood bedroom downstairs. I call him the boyfriend because that's what he always was. A rumor, a family secret. They dated in high school. They were in love. My grandparents kept them away from each other. She met my father. I exist. And she has lived her life. She fulfilled her purpose. She raised a nice suburban family. She was utterly faithful to her husband. And in her final act, she followed her heart. She was a girl who waited. Her boyfriend told me that he waited a month before reaching out. He sent a letter. He shared it with me to read. He lied. It was dated the same day Father's obituary appeared in the paper. That's okay. I don't blame him. They sleep. Some nights I hear noises from downstairs, complicated trips to the bathroom. Mother can't express herself after 9 p.m. Pronouns have become a muddle. She's become very progressive. Everyone is third person plural. If they want to do it, they should. They could mean me, whoever she's speaking to, even herself. Last night was exhausting. She was trying to articulate something about changing the sheets. She had one hand to her head as though she were about to spring into action. Now we have a wheelchair, which is not very helpful traversing the narrow halls. This gets more and more perilous. What have I missed? What have I done wrong? A few weeks ago, her boyfriend had called. It was morning. Mother had passed out at breakfast. I remember when Father died, that was a call, a morning call. Come to the hospital. Your father is there. He's had a heart attack. I expected to find him hooked up to machines, keeping him alive, but he was just dead. When I arrived at the house a couple weeks ago, I expected to find Mother dead. But she was sitting up at the kitchen table in her gown. Her boyfriend said she passed out right there in the chair. A couple minutes later, she sat up like nothing had happened. She didn't even know that it had happened. I sat with him for a little while and then I went to work. I've been trying to connect with her doctors, but they have been very unhelpful. They don't know. They can't say. She's an old woman with CLL. I'm scared to leave them alone in the house. I don't trust she should be left alone ever. Last night, she just forgot how to walk. She's lost the ability to write, to sign her name. She can't choose words. She wasn't like this 2 weeks ago. Neither of my brothers told me that she had fallen down the day after Thanksgiving. She was changing her clothes and she fell over in her bedroom. No one thought to tell me this. My family is incompetent. Mother fell out of bed and we're back in the hospital. Why we didn't bring her in after that first fall, the one where she banged up her face, I hadn't even asked for details. I assumed she'd hit the floor, but she'd hit the railing with her head. She said she was okay, but when does agency end? She finds it so challenging to put together complex thoughts. She sighs a lot. I never thought I would see her this way. Her father was lucid until the day he died. He was 94. She can laugh, though. A resident goes through the daily questionnaire. What is your name? Do you know where you are? What is your birth date? She answers most of these with accuracy. Then they ask her what year it is, and she can't remember. So then they ask, do you know who the president is? Well, after a brief pause, she says, huh, how could you forget that? The way she worries her right foot, moving it back and forth. She fidgets, wrestling with the sheets like she's putting away houseware. Last night, she tried to get out of her hospital bed. She tried to check on trees. It was all about trees. 2 trees, 1 tree behind the other tree. She was worried the tree would fall over. It was a tree planted by her father. But she also said it was my tree. She said my name several times. I told her the trees were being taken care of, that it was not her responsibility. Someone will take care of it. Mother takes care of everything. She met her brother. I was named after her brother. In the middle of the night, Mother nearly removed her hospital gown. I was grateful I wasn't wearing my glasses. I don't want to see that. I was able to calm her down and get her hands back into her sleeves. This is the new normal, and I am on medication, which is a blanket over my heart. My unhappiness has been bound and locked in the basement of my psyche. I cannot hear it, but I know it is there. Am I a bad person? Because I'm realistic? Because I don't have hope? I have been practicing acceptance, which I have found much easier when I'm medicated. Is it really Buddhism if you're on Zoloft? She looks better, the doctor said. Are you nuts? She looks vacant, beaten down. Better or better than crying or in pain? Most of the night, she half pulls herself out of bed, hand gripping the rail turned on her right side, left leg out of the bed entirely. I keep putting her back in bed. I nearly lost my temper at 2 a.m, like I used to do with my infant son. Eventually, I just let her stay that way. And she wasn't complaining, just in this halfway stasis point. So be it. I slept, kind of. Hour at a time. A doctor woke us up at 4 just flipped on the light and stomped in before realizing she was in the wrong room. What the fuck? She snores. I hate to wake her just to order a breakfast she won't want to eat. I used to feel my feelings like a brand, like a beacon. They would burn so bright within me, searing into the area which surrounded them, often manifest in sharply written words or verbal assault. My emotions were always justified and angry. Today I am a stone, a dry-eyed functionary. I'm not certain this is a good thing. Yesterday, I was on my way out of the hospital to pick up my son from school. I found the neurologist walking the other way down the hall toward Mother's room. Since arriving, she's had a CT scan, an MRI, and then a spinal tap. And now he had more news. I joined the boyfriend in her room. Mother's eyes were closed, her mouth open. The man said they were fairly certain she had developed progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, or PML, a rare infection of the brain which can affect those with a compromised immune system. She had a couple of months, or a couple of weeks. I thanked him. I told the boyfriend I had to pick up my son. My mother was given a death sentence, and I just left the room. We brought her home. The woody, carpeted dining room has been converted into her new bedroom. She lies exactly where the Thanksgiving table had been set 3 weeks ago. She's tended to around the clock by a team of nurses and those from hospice. Now that we're home, there's no signpost like the day we go home. This is the new reality. Lying in a bed, in the dining room, until... But it's so good to have her home. To have assistance, to be privileged enough to provide care. For me to be able to go away to sleep. Even now I hear her muttering to herself in the other room. I think I woke briefly every other hour last night. Look at me, thinking, acting like the world is normal. For a day, it might be back in my own bed, going to work, until I visit her. Hear her mumble, watch her struggle. What have we done to let her down like this? We feckless, foolish boys. All we can do now is pay attention. Yesterday, I was in the other room a lot, the kitchen or the living room, not paying attention. Because my focus has been solely on her for hours on end, for 10 days, 14 days. So much to do, and life is brief. And we are fragile and susceptible to so many little bugs that might harm us. The virus they believe has infected her brain is the John Cunningham virus. And it's common. I might have it. Most of us do. An uncompromised immune system can deal with it. Her face flattens out. Expression disappears. My sister-in-law in Minnesota sent photos from 2 weeks ago when Mother was mostly herself, highlighting the injury which I never took care of, that blow to the head, evidence of which is now mostly gone. I'm ashamed. The prodigal is returning from England, 2 visits in as many months. He'll be here for Christmas. I believe there was a conversation to make this possible, perhaps between my wife and his wife. What this means is that I'll be able to visit my in-laws for the holiday. I'll be with my family, my own family, for Christmas. My beautiful children, my wife. The 4 of us sat around last night and caught up, told stories, cleared the air. Communication makes for deeper understanding. Their kids, they're mature. They've lost 2 grandfathers in as many years. They have had it with death. I recently posted about mother's condition on Facebook. Many good words. Folks responding with hearts. People offer help, but I have no idea how to respond, so I don't. She smiled last night. She laughed. Sometimes she blurts out entirely coherent sentences. And she says, yep, and no, and I don't know. We're at my in-laws now. I wanted to be here, and here I am. Bailey's in my coffee at 6 on Christmas morning. I am tired of telling people about mother's condition. I'm jealous that my England brother got invited to our cousins for dinner. I've done so much. I haven't done that much. I'll be driving home again tomorrow morning by myself, which sucks, but so does the fact that my mother's dying of a brain infection. It's a horror. Brother returns to England after New Year's. What new tragedy will 2020 bring? Mother has lost all ability to move or to express herself. She went from enjoying music in a crowd, having dinner with her family, to lying prone in a hospital bed in her own dining room, attended to, repeating the same word, I love, 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 I love. Last night, alone in my own bed, I was awake. There was ringing in my ears and a throbbing like the dryer was running. It was not. Was I even sleeping? There were rooms, there was food, there were gifts. That was part of a dream. But much of the night I was awake, aware, sometimes entirely alert. Check the time, it was 2:31. Shocked. Thinking of mother, thinking of her boyfriend, my brothers, my children, my work, my writing, my dear, dear wife, all of it, everything. Soon we will sit. It is not yet a vigil, or is it? The ultimate love, to see someone off in comfort. Where have I been? Unable to sleep. The clock reads 4:43. No more rest, no desire to. The new calendar is up. Her birthday is in February. Do you think she'll turn 85? A month before he died, Father was on our side of town. A pleasant afternoon with my folks. During their visit, Father became weary and asked if he could go somewhere and close his eyes for a little bit. And since we have no bedrooms downstairs, I led him up to our room to lie down for a short nap. When he woke up, maybe half an hour later, he started coming down the stairs, and I freaked out. He's always been a big guy, over 6 feet tall, and as he aged, he had this bad habit of falling. He'd just be taking a walk around the neighborhood or to the bank, trip and fall hard, banging up his head or his face. Happened a few times. I was standing at the foot of the stairs, and our old house doesn't have any handrails. He was at the top of the stair, making his way down carefully, step after step, and I thought, what if he falls? What if he lands on me? Let's just hope he doesn't. Falling is this sickening feeling of being out of control. We're all falling right now. Where are any of us going to land? Mother gripped my Minnesota brother's hand. I worry she cares more for my brothers than she does for me. My exposure to what Mother thinks or has to say about anything is over. She will never speak again. Even after someone has lost the ability to speak, you can still hear their voice in their cough. I'm glad my brother's back in town. I spend my days with her, my nights at home, knowing she's watched over by him, by her boyfriend, and the folks from hospice. How is it that she will go before all of her friends? All those moments in the future she'll not be part of, all the plans that we're already making that do not include her. I feel exhaustion in my stomach. Our children visited last night, so openly sad and weeping. Our eldest brought in their violin to play for her. Upon the first note, Mother's eyes flew open and my child played fiercely. My wife asked for one more thing, perhaps to say goodnight. They gently sawed out "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." I sang that to them in the womb. A lullaby for an old lady. The children took her hand, told her about the things that they would do, would accomplish, that she will never see. How did I hold it in? Mom died last night, feeling rather hollow. They were tears, but I didn't shed many of them. My family's stoicism holding up to the last. She looked not like herself. All the photos, she has a full, soft face, such a nice smile. Last night, so pale, so thin, but finally at peace. Those last few swallows, she was probably gone by then. Weirdness, too. The lights flickered. Across town, my wife woke with a start. In England, my brother had a panic attack. In their bedroom, someone touched her boyfriend on the wrist to wake him as she transitioned into her final stage. There was no one there. Her main hospice attendant said she had seen my grandfather in my uncle's room upstairs that afternoon. The man in the painting, she said. The portrait of my grandfather on the stair. Looking around at the cases and the shelves, the plates and statuettes, the books and business, it's all going to go. It will find new homes, or no home at all. The finality of a lifetime of accumulation, the Asian art, the birds, the compare. Quite amazing. A beautiful home, a well-lived life, brought to an abrupt conclusion. My mother once told me about a friend who had fallen and broken her hip. Actually, she qualified, she probably broke her hip and then she fell. In this way, she taught me not to assume cause and effect. Just before Thanksgiving, Mother fell on the stairs and hit her head. She was embarrassed. She said she'd missed a step. It's only now that I can put it together. She was already losing control of the right side of her body. It's much more likely that she had only thought she had moved her right foot, but that she had not. That's much more serious than missing a step. We were in the hospital in October. Mother, her doctor, my Minnesota brother, her boyfriend, and me, discussing her options for treatment. She had agreed to the chemotherapy. She did not want the transfusions, those which served to suppress her immune system, but then freakishly led to her death. She had not wanted that intervention. She had not wanted any of this. "I've had a good life," she said. She was ready. We were not.